I'm Samantha. I'm sitting at my kitchen counter, looking at the email from my father. The words on the screen are a long, awaited apology. To my family, I have spent years treating my daughter Samantha as though she did not belong. I was wrong. Samantha is my biological daughter. Reading it, I'm filled with a sense of relief and closure. But it's been a long and painful journey to get here. My family, the Johnsons, was always a big deal in our small town. My father, Henry Johnson, is a successful real estate developer. He's a man who takes pride in his achievements and makes sure everyone knows it. Every year, he hosts Thanksgiving at our large, two-story colonial house on Elm Street. The house was built by his own construction crew in the early 2000s. The dining table, a massive 12-foot slab of polished oak, was a rare find from an antique auction in a neighboring city. My brother, Ethan, is 32 years old. He's tall, with sandy blonde hair and a chiseled jaw. He's always been my father's favorite. Dad bought him a brand new BMW when he turned 18 and paid for his Ivy League education without a second thought. After graduation, Ethan got a high-paying job at my father's company. No questions asked. I, on the other hand, have always been the odd one out. I'm a 26-year-old nurse working in the local community hospital. I have red hair, which stands out in a family full of blondes. It's like I'm a misprint in the family album. My mother, Linda, is a quiet woman. She's more concerned with keeping the peace and maintaining the family's image. She never really stood up for me when my father was being unfair. When I was 10, I made a handmade Father's Day card for my dad. I spent hours on it, using colored markers and glitter. But when he opened it at the breakfast table, he just scoffed and threw it in the trash, saying, "This isn't for me." I was heartbroken. When I was 16, Ethan was sent to a prestigious private school, while I had to go to the local public high school. When my aunt asked my father why, he said, "Why waste money on someone who might not even be mine?" I heard it loud and clear, but no one in the family said a word. Fast forward to last Thanksgiving. The turkey was carved, and the wine was flowing. Ethan was telling a story about a business deal, and everyone was laughing. My father stood up, tapped his glass with a fork, and said, "I've got a little something for Samantha." He reached under the table and pulled out a DNA test kit. "Let's see if you're even mine," he said, sliding it across the table to me. The room erupted in laughter. Ethan high-fived my father, and my mother just stared at her wine glass as if it held all her secrets. I didn't cry. I didn't run away. I just looked my father in the eye and said, "Okay." That night, I realized the home test kit he gave me was for ancestry, not paternity. So, I ordered a proper paternity test from an accredited laboratory. I got my sample easily with a cheek swab, and I found my father's hair on the chair he sat on. I mailed the samples the next day, keeping it a secret from everyone. The next morning, my father posted a picture of me holding the DNA kit on our family group chat. The comments were filled with laughter and mockery. No one came to my defense. It was like I was a punchline in a cruel joke. 3 weeks before Christmas, my father called to remind me that Christmas was for family and that I knew my place. Ethan texted me, telling me to accept my fate gracefully. My mother called, begging me not to make things worse. So, I spent Christmas Eve alone in my small studio apartment. I bought a tiny Christmas tree and made myself a simple meal. In January, my father sent an email about his estate plan. He stated that all his assets would go to his biological children. I read it carefully and realized that if I was his biological child, I was protected by this new will. And it made me wonder about Ethan. A few days later, I went to Ethan's house to pick up some old family photos. His wife, Sarah, let me in coldly. Their 3-year-old son, Jake, looked up at me and said, "Daddy says you're not real family." It was like a punch in the gut, but it also made me more determined to find the truth. That's when I opened the email with the DNA test results. The probability of paternity was 9,998%. I was my father's biological daughter. And it dawned on me that my mother had been hiding something about Ethan. I called a lawyer, M.S. Thompson. Her office was in a small, old building downtown. She was thorough and professional. When I showed her the DNA results and the estate plan email, she said I had a strong legal claim. She also warned me that this would blow up my family, but I told her it was already broken. The day of the formal reading of the will arrived. I wore a professional suit and arrived early at the lawyer's office. My father, Ethan, my mother, and some other relatives were there. My father looked at me with a smug expression, thinking he had won. The lawyer started reading the will. It stated that all assets would go to biological children. I stood up and said, "I have an objection." I introduced Ms. Thompson, and she presented the DNA results. My father was in shock. Ethan tried to deny it, saying I must have faked the results. But Ms. Thompson explained that the test was from an accredited laboratory and was reliable. My mother started crying. She finally admitted that Ethan was not my father's son. She had an affair with a man named Tom, a former business partner of my father's, before I was born. She had used me as a shield all these years, hoping my father's suspicion would fall on me instead of Ethan. Ethan was devastated. He had always thought he was the golden boy, the heir to my father's fortune. But now, everything he knew was a lie. After the chaos, my father finally realized his mistake. He apologized to me in writing, sending the apology to the whole family. Ethan also called me later. He was broken, but I told him he was still my brother. My father decided to revise the will. He wants to split the assets equally between Ethan and me, and he's filing a petition for adult adoption for Ethan. I decided to convert my share into an endowed scholarship fund for nursing students from low-income families. Now, I'm hosting a dinner at my apartment. My friends, including my coworker Lisa and my neighbor Mrs. Jenkins, are here. Ethan also came. He's still trying to find his place, but he's part of my family, and that's what matters. Family isn't about blood. It's about who stands by you when the truth comes out.